Hello and welcome to the Business of Story. I'm your host, Park Howell, and I am so proud to welcome Sendable as our sponsor. Sendable is the social media management platform that I personally prefer to handle all of our storytelling online. Sendable has generously offered you, an ardent Business of Story listener, an incredible 30% discount on their traction plan. It's normally $99 a month, but if you use my link, you can get it for just $69 a month. So visit sendable.com/park30 to start your free 30-day trial today.
I thought it was just a stupid picture of a pig in the ocean. But after hearing that story, I had to have it. Now I wasn't just buying a picture. I was buying a story. Story literally made the picture worth more money to me.
That's what businesses are about. People buy brands. People buy stories much more than anything else.
I work with a lot of big enterprise companies, but let's just say I always tell folks, drop the PowerPoint, close your laptops, start with your story.
If you want people to get engaged and you want people to act, you have to tell them an emotionally powerful story. That's with great characters, it's with uncertain outcomes, and it's with high stakes and drama.
All business strategy is a story.
Welcome back to the Business of Story. I'm Park Howell, and I'm so glad you're here to kick off 2020 listening because, as you know, this podcast is all about helping leaders of purpose-driven brands do a better job, a confident job of telling their brand story, their purpose in the world. Why do they exist beyond just making money? And I got introduced to Jeff Malkoon and his Peanut Butter Company here in Phoenix just about a month ago. I didn't even know they were here. And yet, in a very short amount of time, over the span of about 7 years, they have had an amazing impact. They've had the highs and lows of starting a company, and they're very young. They've got their whole lives, their whole careers ahead of them, and yet they are doing some really cool things with all things peanut butter and almond butter. So with us today, Jeff Malkoon, the co-founder with your sister Denise, right, of Peanut Butter Americano. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Park. Great to be here with you.
It was fun walking through your facility here, and like all growing enterprises, you're in between, you're in flux, you are still manufacturing in one part of the Valley of the Sun here in Phoenix and packaging and shipping out of another. You're in 400 different retail locations in such a short amount of time. So Jeff, give us a little bit of background and maybe even take us to a moment in your young life, well before this, that has informed who you are and how you are becoming a peanut butter magnet today.
Well, I appreciate that, Park. This all really starts for me in the suburbs of Montevideo, Uruguay. Or would you like me to go back further?
Wherever you want to take us.
Okay.
This is your story.
So it was about 7 years ago, Park, that I was backpacking in South America. And I was deep in the jungles of the southern part of the continent.
And how old were you?
I was 24 years old.
So just had you just graduated?
I had.
Okay.
I had just completed a master's degree, and I was taking a quick break down in South America, assessing the next step for my life. And that's when I was introduced to this unbelievable nonprofit organization in Uruguay. I was backpacking around, but I wanted to do something to give back. I was introduced to this organization, and this organization ended up changing my life.
What's it called?
This group is called A Roof for My Country, Un Techo para Mi País, or Techo for short. And I often compare them to Habitat for Humanity. They're essentially the Latin equivalent of Habitat for Humanity. They work building emergency housing in extremely impoverished parts of Latin America. They're now in 19 countries. They started in Santiago, Chile in 1999, were founded by Chilean college students and Jesuit priests at the University of Santiago. And I had a chance to work with them in Uruguay, building emergency housing. And
why there and them? What was it about that attracted you?
Well, I had initially intended to do some volunteer work in southern Peru, and I was in Uruguay when that opportunity fell through. So Peru was the next stop. I was in Uruguay. The opportunity in Peru fell through, and I was looking around for another way to really contribute while I was down there.
So were you like completely bummed? I mean, you had this vision of going to Peru, and then it was pulled out from underneath you, and there you sat in Uruguay?
Exactly. I was bummed, and as with a lot of things in life, I think good things come from the low points. And so, from that disappointment came this new amazing opportunity. A new door opened, and I met this organization. And what's really, really inspiring about this group is that it's entirely run by people under the age of 35. And so it was really, really cool to see young people taking the initiative to improve their own communities in Uruguay and across the continent. And that's what inspired me. And I started thinking, you know what, when I get back to the States, I'd love to do something to contribute back to their work. What can I do? And so as I continued to travel around the continent, I was looking for market gaps. And of course, the story, peanut butter is the one that I ended up settling on. I could not understand why it was that peanut butter was so difficult to find in countries across Latin America, and why, when you were able to find it, it was $15 a jar.
But why peanut butter? Why would you care about peanut butter?
So the mystery of not being able to find it. But when I was working with this NGO in Uruguay, I also noticed that children were going to school with a different type of spread on their sandwiches. Can you guess what they were putting on there?
No.
Dulce de leche.
Which is
essentially caramelized milk and sugar.
Oh, okay.
I tell people it's comparable to caramel, maybe in its consistency. Very sweet, very little nutritional.
They must have
value.
loved it.
Love it. It's I love it too. But it's a dessert item.
Yeah.
Great on alfajores. Sure, great on a sandwich. But I also noticed they were growing peanuts in the neighborhood, right? So they're growing peanuts in the neighborhood and putting dulce de leche, which has no nutritional value, on the sandwiches. What's going on? And so I was sucked into this mystery of why it was that people weren't eating peanut butter in Uruguay and across Latin America. I realized as I continued down this path that it really is an economic challenge. There's a lot more value in it for them to export the peanuts up to us. And then we make big brand nut butters. You can probably guess,
the Jifs of the world.
The Skippies of the world,
yep.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And we export that back to Latin America. And they don't like traditional North American peanut butter. They like dulce de leche, and they like Nutella. They like creamier, sweeter spreads. And so it didn't meet their palate, didn't meet their budgets at $15 a jar on the grocery store shelf. And I thought there must be a better way. And this is what inspired me to start a peanut butter company. And I thought, while I'm doing this, I can contribute back to the work of this group, and we can give part of the proceeds to their efforts. So.
Awesome. Okay, so let's rewind just a little bit more. Where did you grow up? And I know you went to school at Arizona State University. Talk about a little bit about your upbringing that would lead you down to Uruguay after graduating, and what did you study at ASU to help prepare you to create this young and growing peanut butter empire?
Sure. Yeah, happy to do it, because this is really a full circle story. I grew up in central Phoenix, in downtown Phoenix, as a third generation Phoenician. But also Phoenician ethnically. My family immigrated from Lebanon a little over 100 years ago to the desert of the Sonoran Desert here in Arizona. And it was following the mining boom. So we go back a ways here in Phoenix, grew up here, attended Brophy in Central Phoenix.
Which is the boys' Catholic school.
That's an all-boys
yeah.
prep school, that's right. And went on to attend ASU twice. So my first degree at ASU was in global studies, and I was fortunate in the process of that to begin my travel career. I was an intern in the British Parliament for a summer. I studied Arabic in the Middle East, all through the opportunities of the global studies program at ASU, which was
amazing.
Was a phenomenal program. And I went on to master in nonprofit management, because that's really where my heart was.
So was there something about your upbringing that pointed you towards this idea of a big bigger view of the world and helping nonprofits and so forth?
Sure. I think that a lot of it is inspired by the privilege that I had growing up in Central Phoenix, in the community that I grew up in, being given so many amazing opportunities, but also seeing needs in the world. Growing up, my grandmother, around the time that I was born, became a paraplegic through a really difficult health challenge. And so I grew up spending a lot of time with my grandmother in public and really interested in the way that people interacted with someone with a health condition like that. And it kind of touched my life and I think formed the way that I looked at the world and wanting to help others in the situations that they might be in.
Yeah. And
that they didn't choose.
And so the global studies part of it, that's a pretty big view of the world. What was it you think that triggered you to go into that particular study? Sounds like you did that first and then the master's in nonprofit management afterwards.
I did. Well, this may be a familiar story, but I actually started off in business. And my family is in the business world, and they encouraged me to go into business in undergrad. Started with some business courses, felt it wasn't for me, and so I took a semester where I thought, you know what, I'm going to apply to a couple courses that just look interesting. And two of them happened to be global studies. I fell in love immediately and I switched majors.
So you found yourself in global studies over in the British Parliament. And what were you doing there? And take us to a time when maybe you felt like the real fish out of water, like you were in a really strange place.
Sure. So in order to graduate from this global studies program, you had to do a work abroad experience. So from the beginning of joining this program, I was looking for opportunities abroad where I could get some work experience. And finding an internship in the British Parliament was pretty interesting. It turned out to be, because I was doing a lot of door knocking, a friend of a friend of a friend who had a relative who lived next door to the Parliament member's winter home in Fountain Hills.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fountain Hills out here, just outside of
So
Phoenix.
I ended up interning with a British Parliament member of the Labour Party, who had a winter home where we'd spend part of the winter months in Fountain Hills. And I applied that way. He happened to be looking for an intern for the summer. I applied, got accepted, did the background checks, and I was off to Westminster.
Yeah. And when you got there, what was it like?
It was overwhelming. Yeah, I was really on a solo trip. I was abroad for the first time, in England for the first. Everything was a first. Living in the dorms at King's College on my own. But, it turned into an unbelievable experience. What
was the greatest takeaway you got from that?
Oh boy, the greatest takeaway that I got from that is probably just the example of the Parliament member that I was working with, an old salty gentleman who'd been in Parliament for 25 years. His constituency was in North Stockton, so very industrial, very labor focused part of England, and he had just unbelievable stories of failures and successes in the Parliament and different bills that he was trying to get passed to help people. And he really had a giving heart, a heart for trying to make everyday people in England's lives better. And so that really touched me, and I think probably helped shape me, looking back on it now, into the career that I ended up choosing.
So did you then come back, got your global studies degree, then got your MBA in nonprofit management?
That's right.
And just did that back to back?
That's right.
Then decided to take your trip abroad.
So at this point, I'd been at university for 6 years, and I was looking at law school. And I thought, you know what, before I do anything else, before I commit to another 3 years, I'm taking a break. So I grabbed a friend of mine from high school who we kind of dreamed of doing some epic backpacking trip at some point. And I said, remember that South America trip we always talked about doing? Let's do it. And so about 2 weeks after graduating from the master's program, we were on a boat to South America, my friend and I.
And you were going down there, you had your vision of working with a nonprofit, an NGO down in Peru. So was it not just backpacking, but you wanted to go down and just do some nonprofit work for what? The fun of it, the interest in it, or...
Well, we love the idea of backpacking, but we also love the idea of giving something back and contributing something as we were traveling around for the better part of a year, because we were down there for a while. So we thought, is there some way we can contribute back? And so we connected with a primary school in a little town in southern Peru called Tacna that was run by Peruvian Jesuits, and we connected with them to teach English there for a couple months. But that, again, opportunity fell through while we were in a different part of the continent, and we were kind of scrambling for something else to do because we did want to contribute back. So,
What did your family think in all this?
they had a level of skepticism. Just the length of a 1 year backpacking trip in sort of unknown parts of the world. But yeah, and that skepticism continued when I returned to Phoenix and told them I was starting a peanut butter company. So I became accustomed to the skepticism.
All right, so take us to that moment then when you're in Uruguay.
Sure.
And it hit you that there's a need here that I might be able to fulfill. Was there that one aha moment you saw it?
Sure. So I'm noticing peanuts being grown in the suburbs of Montevideo, where I'm working with this organization, building emergency housing, sleeping on dirt floors, just caked in dirt, no showers for days on end. Loving it. Love what I'm seeing, love seeing these young people taking the initiative to improve their communities and feeling like I'm really an observer there. It's not about people from the US coming down and doing the work.
You're not rescuing them.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I'm really an observer. I was invited by a local who was planning to attend, and just fell in love with what they were doing, hand in hand with the people in these communities, building emergency housing that elevated their families off of dirt floors and out from under plastic tarp roofs so that they had a foundation from which to get onto the first rung of the economic ladder, because that's really what this organization is all about and why I love them. It's about getting people into the economy, onto the first rung of the economic ladder. So the housing is just the first step. Then they engage in social programs, job training programs, language training programs that make people, economically, better off than they were before. And that's what needs to happen in a lot of these communities, right? They've got to be lifted up economically. So that's the work they're doing. I loved it. And I happened to notice that they were growing peanuts in the suburbs at that time. Noticed the kids going to school with dulce de leche on their sandwiches. Thought, what the heck is going on? Couldn't find peanut butter at the local store. Got sucked into this mystery, and it only deepened, Park, when I realized that the peanut actually comes from this part of the world.
So that made it even more bizarre, as you had mentioned earlier.
This is the crazy.
You're shipping it up to North America. We're Americanizing it.
Yeah.
Putting all that cost into it and shipping it back down there. It sounds like they didn't like the taste of it, number one, nor could they afford it.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And the peanut comes from there. About 10% of the world's peanuts annually are still produced in the Uruguay, Argentina region of the world, but it was actually first cultivated in that part of the world 3,000 years ago. And they're still growing them today, but you can't find peanut butter very easily.
So you then came back up to America and you said, hey, Mom, I'm back home. It's time to start inventing a peanut butter recipe. What happened next?
That's right. I may as well have been starting a band in the garage or something. Mom said, you're doing what? You're starting a peanut butter company in my kitchen? I thought you were going to law school. So I had to explain that. There was about a 1 year trial and error period where I was in the kitchen working on a Cuisinart, teaching myself how to make peanut butter because I didn't know the first thing about it.
I mean, do you get like an industrial recipe from somewhere, or how do you start mixing it?
Well, I said that I didn't know the first thing about it, but the truth is I grew up making hummus, and peanut butter can be made in a very similar fashion using a food processor. So I figured that out pretty early on. But no, this was 5 pounds at a time, no industrial equipment, just a basically test kitchen.
And burning up your mom's blenders?
Burning up mom's blenders. I did break her Cuisinart, but mom has since gotten a new one. I'd be happy to know. And it was a trial and error process. And this was the first really experience that I had in the course of my illustrious nut butter career with failure, because we were working in a trial and error process to develop flavors that people liked. And the only way to do that is to develop some flavors that people don't like. And so my family, my friends tasted a lot of bad peanut butter, Park. A lot of bad peanut butter. Probably my favorite among the terrible ideas was alcoholic peanut butter that I tried to develop.
No, wait, alcohol for alcoholics or with alcohol in it?
With alcohol in it. Sorry, alcohol peanut butter. I thought, that would be fun, right?
What kind of alcohol do you use?
Different types. But the challenge wasn't the type. It was the consistency of it that I just struggled to get right. It was always a little too soupy.
And so was the idea with alcohol peanut butter that you would be able to eat a peanut butter sandwich and get a bit of a buzz from it?
That's right.
So you were still an ASU student at Hardy.
I was still an ASU student. That's right.
Gotcha.
So that's really how this started. We ended up settling on the 6 flavors that we have today.
What was the first flavor that you perfected?
The first flavor we perfected was classic peanut butter.
Yeah.
That's what we first went for. We just wanted a really, really solid cornerstone classic peanut butter, as pure as can be, peanuts and sea salts, but the perfect mix, the perfect blend, and that's what we aim for.
Okay, so let me get back in your head here a little bit. You're thinking, I've got to make a delicious peanut butter to start with. And then I got to figure out how I can make it at scale. And then I got to figure out how to distribute it and get anybody to care so that you can start making money to make more peanut butter to ultimately, what is the ultimate purpose at this point for your organization or your fledgling peanut butter enterprise?
Sure. So two purposes. One, to fill this market gap that I noticed.
Providing affordable peanut butter that they would like, that was delicious to them.
Yeah, providing a product that was lower in sugar, more affordable, and accessible than what I was finding in Latin America. And this goal, so this is one of the 2 goals. This became a long-term goal. It still is a long-term goal. 2 years ago, we began doing our first exporting,
But was your idea then that would be your first market, that you wouldn't worry about America quite so much? You would first try to get something down there?
When I first had the idea to start a peanut butter company and I was sleeping on a dirt floor in the suburbs of Montevideo, Uruguay, I thought, you know what, I'm going to start this company here. And the next day, as I thought, just continued to work on that idea, I realized there's no market for peanut butter here. This probably isn't the right place to start it with a budget of $0 as a backpacker.
$0 as a backpacker with no market.
Yeah,
okay. So that business education is paying off at this point.
That's right. The intuition, basically. So I thought, I'm going back to the States where 90+% of the people eat peanut butter, know what it is, love it, and there's a market for it. There's already pre-existing demand, and I'm going to start there and build from there. So.
Was the thinking then that you would sell it here, get revenue going, get profits going, and then contribute money down there to help with the cause, or was it to essentially start a market down there for peanut butter?
Well, that's actually the second goal that we set out with in mind. It was to contribute proceeds back to the work of this nonprofit. And that part of our mission has since expanded to working with a lot of domestic nonprofits as well. Just in the past couple of years, we handed out over 20,000 PBJs worth of peanut butter to local food banks like St. Mary's Food Bank, St. Vincent de Paul, and others right here in the United States. So we're really proud of that. We've expanded our mission. We developed a nonprofit called the Fund for the Americas to help us expand our giving from just giving to A Roof for My Country, Techo, to giving domestically as well.
And you're giving both product and funding, or is it primarily product?
So this is both funding and in-kind donations. Yeah. So domestically, it's been mostly in-kind to food banks that have reached out here in the Southwest in the U.S. Abroad, it's been more of the funding.
Yeah.
And we're really proud of the fact that at this point, we've contributed enough funding to Techo to build housing for 22 families across South America.
Congratulations already.
Thank you. Yeah.
That is so cool. You had mentioned on our tour, you're in 400 retail. So where are some stores that people could find this?
So the primary locations we typically send people are Sprouts, Whole Foods, and here in Arizona, AJ's.
And they can buy it online too.
And of course, online. We're both on our website, pbamericano.com, and on Amazon Prime.
PB Americano?
pbamericano.com.
Great. So let's go back to those early days. You've perfected that first batch. What next? What did you do? How did you start making it at scale and finding a market for it?
Sure. So as you can imagine, I came back as a broke backpacker, working in my mom's kitchen, developing this company 5 pounds at a time on a Cuisinart, and trying to settle first on the flavors, right, on the menu that we would offer. And next, establishing on a really, really grassroots level in downtown Phoenix. So about 7 years ago this month, Park, we sold our very first jar of peanut butter at Phoenix Public Market, okay, a farmer's market that I don't know if you've attended, maybe in downtown Phoenix.
And literally standing there in the sun and maybe the heat with your new jars of peanut butter.
That's right. That's right.
It was just the one flavor?
No. At this point, we went to market with all 6 flavors.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And sold out the very first day that we were there. And sold out the next week, and pretty quickly realized it wasn't due to success that we were selling. It was due to a lack of supply, and we needed to make more nut butter because for the first day we sold out, we thought, oh my gosh, people love it. And then you pretty quickly realize, this isn't a good thing. This is a bad thing. We're not prepared, and we should be, we shouldn't be selling from an empty cart. So we quickly started looking for contract packaging partners, and that's really what helped us to scale to the point that we are today.
So with that first round, I'm always curious about this. Do you have to go through some sort of FDA approval or someone that blesses the purity and the safety of your peanut butter so you're not making a bunch of people sick? Or how do you get over that part of it?
Yes. So even from day one at that first farmer's market, you cannot produce nut butter out of mom's kitchen. they would have shown up and taken me away in handcuffs at that very first farmer's market. You've got to be in an FDA certified commercial kitchen. And so from day one, we were renting space and producing ourselves in very small quantities. And then we eventually, pretty early on, transitioned to contract packaging facilities that had those certifications ready to go.
And you literally just took your recipes that you concocted in your mom's kitchen and wrote down, and then created the different amounts that would need to go in a large industrial way, and then brought it in and they started making it for you? Yes. And did you have to revise those recipes in any way, shape, from going from that small little batch to large batches? Did you have problems there of making it still work for you?
We had the flavor profiles, we had the recipes, and at that point it was just math, going from the smaller batches that we were producing in mom's kitchen to larger batches being produced on industrial level equipment. Still in small batches though, so the math wasn't too crazy.
How did you fund it? Mom and dad? Skeptical mom and dad?
Skeptical mom and dad. No, it was self-funded. Yeah. So I invested about $8,000 of my own money, pretty much every dollar that I had to my name. And I just looked at it as a grassroots project that I was going to build from the ground up. And that's part of what was appealing about it to me. I had other business ideas that I'd acquired along the way in South America, but peanut butter stood out for the reasons I mentioned, and because it's peanut butter and it's just really cool. But also because I thought this is something I can start in mom's kitchen with, on a backpacker's budget with no money at all, start selling a jar at a time at local farmers markets and really grow from the ground up. And with the help and support of an amazing community here in Arizona, I've been able to do that and keep at it for 7 years now.
What was that day like when you got your first distribution contract, and who was it with?
Sure. That was a really great day. And it was with our first distribution contract was with a local distributor who had actually come to us to sell an ingredient for our products. So I was talking to a sales rep who'd come to my office to pitch me on an ingredient that would go into our peanut butter. And I said, you know what, we don't need that ingredient, but have you thought about this? Because you have really quality products. We have really quality products. What if you put our stuff on your trucks? Is there a market there? And that conversation began, and within a couple months, we were sitting in front of the head buyer at Sprouts, and they said, you know what, we want your peanut butter. We also want more local products. And so this actually developed into a new business for this distributor, and we kind of became partners, but we were the baby.
Sprouts was the first one, then Whole Foods came on.
Yes.
So, I mean, you've got some major brand names now, retail grocer names handling your distributing, selling your peanut butter.
Yeah, we're really proud of that.
That's pretty cool. Now, what do we got here? You've got some almond butter Americano sitting right in front of me, and I have not taken a taste of it yet.
This is our best seller right here, Park. I wanted you to give it a shot. It's cinnamon roasted almond butter.
Cinnamon roasted almond butter. What cinnamon roasted? So,
yeah.
Do you roast the almonds in cinnamon and then put it in the butter, or you not tell?
We're trying to get you to think about with that name are the almonds you find at fairs and ball games that are dipped in maple sugar and cinnamon, roasted often on the spot. You can smell them from a mile away, and people love them. That's what we were trying to create with this flavor.
All right, here we go. You did it.
Okay.
That is awesome. Now, pardon my mouthful of peanut butter.
Sure.
Have you tested this down in Uruguay?
The cinnamon roasted almond butter, no. The initial flavors.
That is good.
Thank you. Thanks. It kind of has a long, subtle taste to it. A lot of folks say they'll use this one as a breakfast item on rice cakes or apples. No preservatives, no emulsifiers.
But you could put that on a kid's peanut butter PB&J sandwich going into school, right, and feel good about it as a parent.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
There's not,
and you actually could put it on there because this is almond butter. So
yeah.
So they
true.
won't stop you. Yeah. So this flavor, this isn't one of the initial flavors that we've sent to South America. Primarily at this point, we've sent our chocolate flavor, so dark chocolate peanut butter and Choco Blanco, our white chocolate.
So you were trying to kind of disrupt then the, how do you say that? Delete?
Oh, dulce de leche.
Thank you. You're trying to disrupt that market by going in with a sweeter brand first and get them used to that, and then maybe bring in the other flavors?
That's our goal.
Yeah.
It's something that's better for you. And that's the educational component that we didn't have the resources when I was first conceiving of this idea to produce, but that we're, working towards. So
yeah. Awesome. I want to take a quick break here, Jeff, for our remarkable sponsor, Sendable. And when we come back, I want you to take us to some of the darkest moments in doing this when you thought, this is a fool's errand and it ain't going to work. All right? So let's cover that right after this. Many of you have been following me in the business of story on social media for a while now, and I really appreciate it. And if you're not, I hope you will. We share valuable business storytelling tips to help your brand stand out among the awful noise out there. And we do it all thanks to Sendable, a social media management platform that helps over 3,000 digital agencies worldwide to work with their clients, breathe life into their brands, and get their stories heard on social media. What we like about Sendable is they make it super easy to manage your content and your stories online. They allow you to source content from clients and collaborate closely with them to create a social media strategy built on true and proven storytelling principles. You can reliably plan and schedule content to be automatically published to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and more. And you can demonstrate the impact that this content has had on your audience growth and conversion by reaching out through their in-depth reporting and analytics. There's much, much, much more that you can do. But you know what? I think maybe my favorite feature has to be Smart Posts functionality. Now, what Smart Posts are is it makes it incredibly easy to craft social media content and in one single step, customize it for each platform, giving you the best chance of driving engagement and getting people to pay attention to your content. Sendable truly makes managing so many channels an absolute breeze. I know, you have a lot of choices when it comes to social media management apps, so I wanted to let you know we here at the Business of Story can't recommend Sendable enough. Gavin and his team are so great that they have a special offer just for you. You can now get, as a special offer for Business of Story listeners, Sendable's Traction Plan for only $69 a month. That's a 30% savings. So sign up now at sendable.com/Park30. Believe me, your stories will take off. Hey, welcome back. Park Howell here with Jeff Malkoon with the Peanut Butter Americano story. And I'm looking at almond butter when I say that, so I confused the name there a little bit. Awesome having you here. It's an amazing story. You have accomplished so much in 7 years. Take us to now a time when you thought, man, this ain't going to work. And how you overcame that.
Sure. So, I almost, it takes you back to the beginnings of the origin story as the first time when I really thought, this is crazy. This isn't going to work. And that thought was reinforced by people around me who also, this is kind of crazy. Peanut butter, really? Uruguay, all this. But I love talking about the struggle because I think that people really identify with struggle. And I don't know about you, Park, but when I'm scrolling through my social media networks, I much prefer to see something that is raw and real than the 100th smiling, everything is happy in my life post.
The facade people put
the
on.
facade. So love talking about the struggle, or at least I find it refreshing when others do. So there's that. And, for that reason, I always find it really, really awesome to dig deep into the origin story. And there's a reason for this too, Park, because when I was conceiving of this idea, I don't remember seeing you sleeping on the dirt floor next to me in the suburbs of Montevideo. So I have to bring you there with me all the way back to the beginning.
To get people to understand your passion behind this.
That's right. Because right now, what people see is they see an end product. And they see what, essentially amounts to that happy, everything is perfect, 100th picture that you see scrolling through your social media feed. They see a final product. What they don't see is all of the struggle, all of the pain, all of the work that goes into creating that product. So it's very surface level. And in order to take people deeper, you've got to tell stories. And that's the beautiful thing about this. And so...
and it's that story, I imagine, that really helps pull you through. When you wake up in the middle of the night, as we all do, when you're trying to build something and you have that tremendous self-doubt and you can't sleep the rest of the night and you're asking yourself, can I pull this out? Can I make this happen? Or am I just embarrassing myself, in front of my friends and family?
Right. Yeah, Sure,
I mean, we've all had those times.
Sure.
Do you remember that moment when you thought, I'm going to pack it in, I'm not going to do this, and you somehow overcame it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Take us there.
It started very early on. It started when I probably the first time really was when I got back to the States and sat down with my family and told them I'm planning to start a peanut butter company.
And they all looked at you like you were nuts.
And they looked at me like I was nuts. And that's why, my feeling about it is that when you find a spark, when you find that spark, that entrepreneurial spark, you have to hold on to it. And you've really got to be defensive in protecting it. And for me, I had to do that very, very early on. But there was a passion there. And that's why it was important for me. I didn't know why there was a passion for peanut butter. I hadn't fully processed exactly, what had inspired me at this point. But I knew the passion was there and that I had to write it out. And I feel like passion is probably the most important component of entrepreneurialism because, one, the world needs people who are passionate, who are just on fire about what they are doing in their careers, but also because the money isn't going to be there on day one. And it may not be there on year one, especially in the food space. And some companies don't see real profitability for years and years.
How long did it take you to get to profitable?
Years and years.
Yeah.
This is the food space. It's low margin and it's a numbers game. And so in order to make $1 million, you've got to sell 1 million units of whatever food product it is that you're producing. And it's no different in the nut butter world. And so for that reason, passion is so critical because there's really not much else that's going to be able to carry you in those early stages, and maybe even further. If the passion isn't there, you'll be in trouble.
Yeah.
And I was faced with opposition from the very beginning, from the skeptics who thought, what happened to law school? I thought you might be applying for a job and starting your career. Peanut butter, what's going on? And it took time, in the marketplace, really, before I turned some of the skeptics, many of them very close to me, into believers. And they could see that there was potential there. People were buying it. People were coming back, reorders, all of this.
Yeah, because peanut butter, almond butter, it's just another example of the ultimate commodity. You go to the store and it's jam-packed with different kinds of peanut butter.
Right.
And I don't imagine people are buying this for the story because they probably haven't heard the story the first time around. The packaging is nice, but still, how do you feel like you cut through in a very commoditized world to get people to buy it for the very first time and then come back for more?
Sure. That's a great question. Well, the first part of your question, Park, is you acknowledging that this is a commoditized market. That was something that was daunting to me when I first started this company, but that I realized later was actually a huge asset.
How so?
Well, because the prevalence of nut butter in the United States, the prevalence of nut butter brands, was a sign of a very healthy demand for nut butter.
And you say nut butter, I grew up on peanut butter, and that's all there ever was. But now my wife, Michelle, has a lot of almond butter around and not so much peanut butter. And I guess that's where peanut butter grew into the nut butter business.
That's right.
So that's a fairly new phenomenon, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So peanut butter is still huge, but we've seen other spreads like almond butter, cashew butter, and others on the rise, especially in recent.
So just having that rising new market was a great place for you to be working.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that demand already existed. One thing we didn't realize at first was that the market gap that we had set out to fill actually also existed in a way here in the Southwest, where when we started this company, we were actually the very first nut butter company of our kind to come out of Phoenix, come out of Arizona in the Southwest. And so at local markets and festivals, we had an immediate demand for
people were looking for the product.
They were. So, even though everybody already, it was the perfect situation.
Yeah.
You had customers who were already familiar with the product, love peanut butter, love almond butter, but could never find a locally produced spread and had never seen it in their lives at a farmer's market or festival in the Southwest. And we changed that.
And buying local has become such a big thing too, to not every buyer, but a large growing number of buyers.
Sure. Yeah, but people also want something that's fresh, that's as close to the earth as you can get it. And that's what we brought. Peanuts and almonds don't grow particularly well in the desert. So what we did initially is we would bring in raw nuts from Central California and West Texas, and then we would roast and grind them right here in the valley and bring the freshest nut butter that Arizonans and people in the Southwest could get, and filled that gap.
And I imagine that took a while to really understand how to best roast these different nuts when you brought them in. I mean, did you have to learn on the fly, or did you have a specialist come in and help teach you how to do the roasting?
Sure. So I'm a strong believer in strategic partnerships and collaborations. And so from the very early stages, we looked for those contract packaging partners who had expertise far beyond what I had in making nut butter, and began working closely with them. And they really filled the gaps in my knowledge and helped me to produce products that were really the best that they could be, and as well certified as they could be too, which is a huge expense that I was able to avoid.
So having this purpose-driven brand for yourself helped you overcome some of those sleepless nights and hardship and the skepticism to get you to where you are today. How important was that purpose story initially to your distributor and to the Sprouts and Whole Foods of the world? Did they care, or were they just much more interested in a really quality, delicious product?
I think both. I think they did care. I always begin with the story. And I think that is, to answer your last question, what helps us sell our products in part, and helps us to differentiate ourselves. We have a very unique origin story. So anytime I have the opportunity to tell that origin story, I do. And I often begin with it in meeting with buyers at stores who have, met with 10 other brands before I walk in the door and want to know, okay, what's unique about you? What's unique about this? And then after the story, I go into the weeds of the different variables of products.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, they are much more intrigued by the founder and your own origin story and your character. What drives you? Why are you doing this beyond just making money? And then they go over to the data. In this case, the data is the product. That's right. And the analytics that go into and the ingredients that go into it. But they are driven by the person and the character and how it got here in the first place. And yet, Jeff, it seems like in business, as I coach on story around the world, I find that business people first default to logic and reason and the data, trying to look and sound smart, thinking that that's what sells product, it sells services. But it's really not. It's the human beings behind it, isn't it? I mean, I think you are living proof of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So now that you are growing, your customers, the individuals that come in and buy the product, how many of them do you think know the origin story or care about the origin story or the purpose of the brand versus just having a delicious local product available to them?
Never enough. Never enough. It's an unfortunate reality that we have to talk about the data side of things often when we're selling the product and when we're demoing the product. Try this flavor, try that flavor, low sugar, the nutrition and flavor variables. And then we get to the story. And I hate it. If I could, I would tell the story first every single time. But we are selling a product and people need to know what they're looking at. And so it often flips when you're not in a meeting sort of setting with a buyer. And so never enough people who know the story. I'm always just biting to tell it to more people. So thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, it is so powerful when you hear it directly from the source. But as you were scaling your business and reaching out, where are other places that you are sharing your story online, and where you can actually scale your story?
Sure. So the obvious places of our websites, our social media channels, and PR opportunities that, because of what we do in the nut butter world and because it's fun and family friendly and interesting in a way, PR opportunities that tend to come our way. So
yeah, I would imagine it's a powerful enough story that you would get a lot of attention for it.
We've gotten some amazing, some unbelievable publicity. And I'm just so grateful for it. One of the great pieces of publicity that came our way a couple years ago was through a little company called PayPal. They were hosting a little company. They were hosting an event called the PayPal Duel at South by Southwest Festival, and they invited 6 companies from around the country to compete in this duel, and we were one of the companies that was selected, and we ended up winning. People from around the country were able to got onto their PayPal's website, watched videos that we produced, and voted.
And voted on what, the most powerful purpose-driven story or origin story?
Yeah, so that was a big part of it. But they were voting essentially to send 2 of the companies to the South by Southwest Festival where they would meet Damon John from the Shark Tank.
Oh, right.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. The FUBU Shark Tank fellow.
And what did Damon John think of Peanut Butter Americano?
Well, so we won. We got to South by Southwest. We're on stage with Damon John, and I'm on stage with my mom, who's actually.
Well, of course you were.
I had to bring mom. She's sampling peanut butter to Damon John and giving him hugs and all. Yeah. He loved it. He loved our brand. He loved my mom, obviously, and he said that we were rock stars.
Moms are always a secret weapon, by the way.
Right, I know. So yeah, he actually called us rock stars. One of my favorite quotes that I think is on our website somewhere. These guys are rock stars. So they're just an unbelievable, PR experience for us.
Well, here we are at 2020. Where do you want to be at 2030?
Wow, that's a huge question that you just dropped on me that I didn't know was coming.
That's my job.
Yes, Park, thank you for that question. In 2030, our company is going to be giving more. That's a big part of our mission that we don't always get to talk about. We'll be working more closely with the nonprofit partners that we have domestically and abroad, which is always the forefront of our minds. And we'll be distributed a lot more broadly than we are today. So mostly today in grocery stores, you can find our products around the Southwest. There's 400 retail locations, or mostly in the Southwest, some in Canada. But by 2030, this is going to be a national brand. That's absolutely our goal, if not international brands.
And it's international now in that you can buy it online, right, and ship it internationally.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
And you are delivering in bulk to some big enterprises, including Mayo Clinic. So they use it. So that, I think, must speak to the the healthy nature of your product.
Sure. Yeah, I hope so. But yeah, this is the other side of what we do that people don't see is backdoor peanut butter sales that go into the kitchens of different
and
venues.
Spring training for baseball teams out here, is that?
Yeah, so we're partnered with all of the Cactus League teams, and we stock all of the spring training facilities for Major League Baseball teams here in Arizona with our products.
Do you have all of your 6 different flavors?
Some of the teams carry all 6 flavors, and they've actually, we've worked with them to create peanut butter buffets where the players can, just mix it up, whatever they're in the mood for.
So what is the Major League Baseball player's favorite flavor of all that you deliver?
I think you might be surprised. It's actually Choco Blanco.
Choco Blanco. Is that the white chocolate?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. White chocolate
For
and peanut
some
butter.
reason, far and above, Choco Blanco is the one that we get reorders on. And there are a couple teams in particular that really love the Choco Blanco. The Cubs and the Padres come to mind. They're like addicted to Choco Blanco. So that's a really cool aspect of what we've been able to do. And I was meeting with the head chef for the Dodgers actually a couple years ago, and he informed me that they refer to peanut butter and jelly sandwiches as minor league steak. And I said, minor league steak? Why is that? He said, because the minor league guys don't get steak. They get peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And so this is like, and it's quality peanut butter. So this is like their,
this is their Ruth's Chris peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yeah.
So your buddy who went hiking with you all those many years ago, what's he doing now? And when he looks at you, he's like, dude, I can't believe you pulled that off.
Right. Oh, man. I think probably he was the biggest skeptic of all when I started losing my mind for peanut butter in South America. And I had a moment there where I thought, I'm going to stay in Uruguay. I'm going to start this company here. And he just shook his head. He said, Jeff, we're going back to the United States. And, I obviously came to see the light. But, at first, it was just an idea, as most entrepreneurial, concepts are. It just starts out with the seed of an idea and develops from there. And this was no different. And so it's I think, easier to get people on board once you are at market, once people see sales, than when you just have the crazy idea. And no one's actually seen it, come to fruition in the world. So I had to make that happen first. Yeah. So if I go back and talk to my friend now, I don't know what he'll say, but he's pretty content in his career in supply chain. So,
all right, final question for you. If any of our listeners go to pbamericano.com right now to order their first jar of your peanut butter, what is the flavor you would recommend?
I'd have to recommend Choco Blanco. It's my favorite flavor. It's like a dessert item, but low sugar, as all of our products are. All of our products are under 4 grams of sugar and under 3 net carbs, but Choco Blanco just stands out to me. My favorite way to eat it is to heat it up in the microwave and pour it over vanilla ice cream, where it hardens like a shell and just makes a really protein-rich topping for ice cream, and it's delicious. Also, the cinnamon roasted almond that you tried, Park.
Yeah, that was delicious.
Was that good? Okay.
That was awesome.
All right.
So I lied. One last question. For all of those listeners out there that are trying to do something, build a company, build something special with a purpose to it, what 2 or 3 tips would you give them that really helped you to create the stick-to-itiveness of going from your mom's kitchen to where you are today 7 years later?
Sure. So one critical point that I have found a lot of value in my illustrious peanut butter career is don't believe the hype. Don't buy into your own hype. Park, I love your podcast. And one of the main takeaways I've gotten from it over time, aside from the critical importance of great storytelling, is that companies that stand the test of time are not the companies that merely had a great product or service, but companies who put people in place that understood this one important fact about business. Are you ready for it?
Yeah. And it's not hype, I take it.
No. When you think you've got it figured out, you don't. Okay, you have to keep creating, and companies that succeed, in my observation of your podcast and listening to the amazing guests you have, are companies that keep engaging, that keep searching for ways to make tomorrow better for their customers and for their brands. And so that would probably be my number one piece of advice. Don't believe the hype.
Well, think about that from what you shared with us on your own journey. You hyped yourself up to go to ASU into business school, and you got in and go, this isn't for me. And so you went into global studies. You then said, okay, I've got to go around the world somewhere. Where am I going to go? Oh, this looks interesting. And it took 7 different connections, that's 6 degrees of separation to get you as an intern in the British Parliament. And then you come out of this, you get your degree in nonprofit management, and then you and your buddy buy into the hype of we're going to go, backpacking down in South America to Peru, only to have something thrown at you. So you thought you knew what you're going to be doing, and yet the universe took you somewhere completely different. Mm-hmm. And then you were there helping build homes for families down there, and thought you had that figured out probably a little bit. You're enjoying it. This is great. Then all of a sudden this peanut butter thing pops up. So you are the living, breathing example of that, and just your own story to where you are today with your amazing company after just 7 years. So I think that's really great advice. As you were talking about it, I thought about all the times I buy into my own hype, and even to this day, and then you have to take a deep breath and think, okay, is that real?
Right.
Or what am I missing? What is it blinding me to? And quite often there's just something just off the periphery that just takes you to change your view just a little bit. And that's your aha moment. And that's where I need to go next with it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All of life is an experiment, and the more experiments, the better. Those are Emerson's words, and I love them. And it's, really for us, it's a balance of looking back and being proud of where you've come from, but also continuing to look forward towards your goals and how much further you have to go, continuing to search and continuing to work every day. So,
yeah. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy here, and it's just been awesome having you here.
Thanks, Park. Pleasure.
And thank you all for listening to this edition of The Business of Story. If you like Jeff's story and you think it would be inspiring to others in your life, friends, family, colleagues, bosses, anybody, or maybe you've got a business partner out there, share this episode with them, because I think there's just such amazing amount of insight that all startups could use to work. And know that I'm a big believer, and Jeff, I think, plays this out here, is it starts with your purpose. Why are you in business? For a bigger reason than just to make money, because that making money thing, it's shallow and it just doesn't get you through the hard times. That when you're actually having an impact in the world, you are going to come across really hard times. And unless you've got that purpose, that North Star that's going to keep you going through thick and through thin, it's really hard to make it in this world, because everything else becomes just a commodity. A purpose is what makes you different. It makes you stand out, and it makes you give it 110%, and your product and your service will express that to the world. So feel free to share this episode with them. And of course, if I can be of service to you, visit me over at businessofstory.com. Love to help you craft and tell a compelling brand story that makes a difference in the world by sharing your purpose with your audiences and the customers who really care about you. And as you are sharing those stories, don't forget about my pals over at Sendable, fantastic online platform that we use to manage and to publish all of our storytelling here at Business of Story. And they've got a special waiting for you at sendable.com/park30. Take advantage of that right now. And until next Monday, when we will have another amazing story artist like Jeff for you, remember that the most potent story you will ever tell is the story you tell yourself. So make it a great one, especially for 2020.